100 years ago, law, business, war, and medicine used to be very different from the contemporary times, usually downright creepy, such as forced marriages for child brides. And that's just the beginning. Here are a few creepy things that were formerly deemed as normal. Before we begin though, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to stay notified for future uploads. One of the most horrible things in the human history was child labor, and what's even more terrible is that it was considered normal. A newborn was seen as future labor, an old age insurance policy for most of the human history. From an early age, children were expected to help around the farm, house, or business. Around the turn of the century, as the economy progressed and so did urbanization, children worked in a wide range of industries, careers, and professions. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics in the United States maintains a track of all of this. They claim that rural kids have now been employed in resource extraction, for instance, mining and conveying coal, in addition to the traditional farming and agricultural field labor that they had historically done 100 years ago. Children from the coastal towns could be found fishing, shoring, and shucking oysters for cannings. As for the cities and towns of all sizes, children worked in mills and factories, making products such as glass, textiles, kitchenware, cigars, and more. The children from large cities, however, could be seen talking around careers, drivers, cleaners, newsies, and more. In almost every level of the US economy, child labor was involved. However, the children themselves didn't get to enjoy the money they earned. The society saw these kids as an extra source of income for their parents. Next, we have the emergence of Black Death on the US soil. It rocked the 14th century so hard that it killed a third of Europe's population. Bubonic plague, on the other hand, wasn't just an issue for Europeans who died hundreds of years ago. Over 1,000 cases were reported in the United States throughout the 20th century. Bubonic plague is spread mostly by flea bites, especially fleas carried by rats, which arrived in the United States aboard steamships destined for San Francisco in the 1900s. The first epidemic of the plague in the United States occurred in the city's Chinatown, and it terrified California's officials so greatly that they plotted to keep it hidden from the rest of the country. Before the pandemic was over, at least 172 individuals died. Over 500 cases were reported in the first 25 years of the 20th century, with most of them occurring in port towns. Another outbreak occurred in Galveston, Texas in 1920. The city acted promptly this time when the source of the sickness was established, which was rats, as usual. Galveston went on a 2-year rodent-killing rampage that helped to bring the outbreak to a close, with only 11 people dying from it. The US government poisoned booze, and it caused death of 4 times more as alcohol did before. After a decades-long effort to persuade Americans that imposing a ban on liquor would benefit and improve the society, the sale of alcoholic beverages was finally made illegal on January 17, 1920 in the US. But the teetotalists were proved wrong, since America devolved into a bizarre image where the government attempted to poison you. Prohibition was met with swift opposition, while the cops and the politicians followed the directions from the mafia and the KKK. Maryland rejected the enforcement. Many other states and municipalities underfunded the enforcement. The prohibition of the manufacturing and sale of alcohol had no effect on the desire for it. As a result, a market emerged for its supply. And since alcohol suddenly became a very profitable commodity, bootleggers and mafia leaders who sold it now had plenty of cash to pay cops, legislators, and judges. Because prohibition was predominantly driven by racist, anti-immigrant, and anti-Catholic beliefs, it helped fuel the renewed terror campaign of the Ku Klux Klan. Thirsty Americans risked prison and sometimes their lives just to get beer. During Prohibition, homemade booze, also known as bathtub gin, killed 4 times as many people as alcohol did before it was outlawed in 1920. These fatalities were not unintentional, but rather planned, because a lot of homemade liquor was distilled with industrial alcohols. The feds increased the amount of methanol, a lethal poison, required to create those industrial alcohols. Will Rogers puts it humorously as, governments used to murder by the bullet, only now it's by the court. In the early 20th century, women's medicine was frightening. Health treatment was not a pleasant experience, and it was even worse for women. It will come as no surprise that women suffered barriers to joining medicine, but they were also barred from medical research for a long time. So long, in fact, that only in 2016 was it made essential to include females in medical research trials. Doctors were advised in a popular 1907 pregnancy book to prepare pregnant ladies by washing their lady parts in chloride, a highly deadly material currently mostly employed as a fungal substance. Male apathy toward women's medication medication wasn't all terrible. It was a common cure for the feared female hysteria. As depicted in the 2012 film Hysteria, doctors allegedly gave patients pelvic massages till they were satisfied. Eventually, a visionary hero surfaced and devised an electromechanical therapy that paved the way for today's adult toys. Moreover, 100 years ago, eugenics was considered science and law. The pseudoscientific theory of eugenics holds that humans can actively improve the species by practicing racism. Governments all around the world have spent decades attempting to improve the lives of their residents. Eugenics is a human breeding program, essentially an attempt to improve ourselves as a species. In his opening address to a 1923 eugenics conference, the president of the American Natural History Museum declared that responsible governments should ensure that individual races stay in their place and do not pollute each other through interbreeding, and that those who proved unfit should be sterilized. In fact, when the great Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes voted to preserve numerous sterilization statutes, he said some extremely alarming things. Instead of waiting to execute those who are manifestly unfit to generate offspring for crime or starving them for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are unfit from continuing to be kind. Eugenics was popular and considered progressive. Leaders of organizations like Planned Parenthood and the ACLU joined luminaries like Teddy Roosevelt and Alexander Graham Bell. California was particularly active and successful because of its high levels of anti-Mexican and anti-Asian sentiment. In the 20th century, over 20,000 Californians were sterilized. So, these were some horrifying and creepy things which were a part of history, and we are grateful they don't exist today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please make sure to hit the like button, the notification bell, and subscribe for more incredible facts. See you in the next one.